I'm the captain of Dominus, and this is Brett Skinner, and he's the co-captain of Dominus. So we're going to go over some basic wrestling techniques that we use and we kind of developed over the last few years that helped us get first place in the men's 5 versus 5. So this course is interactive, and you guys are welcome to participate. We just ask that we don't actually throw anybody to the ground. And feel free to ask questions, and we're happy to answer it. So we're going to go over 3 basic things. The first thing is a move that we call the hump and bump, right? Does anyone here know judo? Anyone? Yeah. Anyone know what the Osotogari is? Yeah. So basically, we're going to do a judo takedown against a rail, where they don't do takedowns against a rail or against a wall. So it's a modification of that. And then we're going to show you how to do it with 2 people. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about field awareness and about the difference in 5 versus 5 fighting that is very particular to 5 versus 5 versus the 12s and the 30s. Right? The 12s and the 30s is a completely separate mindset. Right? So the hump and bump is a if you watch video, you're going to see, if you watch Dominus fight, you're going to see this takedown happen a lot. It's a very low energy, very fast takedown, and it's a very, very effective move against an opponent that feels safe, because they think when their back is to the rail that they're safe. This is where we go to be safe.
I don't know if you want to move over there, by the way, it's a lot drier and harder.
It's drier and harder?
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah, well, let's just rotate over there, and it's out of this. People don't have to look into the sun. Yeah. All right, well, come here to the middle. Actually, we'll have you stand sideways first. Right. So, what we're going to do when we do a hump and bump, right? When we're going to do this attack, is we're going to attack a hip on one side or the other. So if I'm going to attack a hip and I'm straight across from him, it's not easy for me to do. So what I want to be, right, when I'm attacking him and I want to attack a hip, is I want to pick a side, one side or the other side. And the easiest way to index or identify where you need to be is when you're attacking that hip. You see his elbow here, right? The elbow cup. We take that and we can use either the bell of our gauntlet or our gauntlet itself. We can grab that and we pull it to the center of our chest. So our heart, the center of our chest, goes to the bell of that gauntlet. You see what this does with my hips? It aligns my hips so I am in a good position to attack his hips. This also controls, because if he wants to pull and rotate away from me, rotate that way, it stops him, right? If I have his wrist, he can do it, right? And I'm not allowed to grab the pauldron, but if I grab here, he'll slide that arm, and he'll end up going, I might miss that gauntlet, or that elbow. So I take that elbow and I hold it to the center of my chest, so it keeps him from rotating away. It allows me to attack this hip, right? And we'll show this against the rail, but it's important for you to see it now. So what I do with this hand, right, if we bring it up here, he can grab my elbow, right? Or he can hug it, right? And now if I take him down, I might go with him. We don't want that. So this hand actually goes here, because if he tries to grab this arm, right, what I do is I slough it straight down, right? So I put it on the hip. Either hand can have the weapon, your weapon. And what I do, imagine the rail right here, is I step, right, and then the rail's here, and I roll my hip under the rail, right, and then I bump my hip into his hip. And you see how it breaks his posture, right? And then I just bring him down, right? You can see where he's going. I'm not going to throw him on the ground. Against the rail here, if I'm attacking and I want to attack this, I'll attack that side, right? And I see this, he's reaching, I see this, I got this elbow, boom, I go here, right? And my hip goes under the rail, this hand goes here, under the rail, and then I bump that hip, and he goes right down. Really easy, low energy takedown. Super low energy takedown. Does anyone have any questions on it so far? No? Does anyone want to try it?
So how do you avoid when you posture your hip, you went almost to the similar position to your opponent did.
Yeah.
How do you avoid to get thrown way back?
Yeah, so I hear what this hand postures on the rail, right? And here, he doesn't have the energy to take it. This leg is posted, right? And if I'm worried about this position, I can actually just take this foot and kick it back, plant it, and same thing, and roll the hip.
I focus hard pressing my chest into the rail.
Yeah.
So when I'm doing this, boom, I'm under.
You pin them. You pin your chest
Yeah,
to
I
the
see.
rail.
lift
You
this.
sometimes grab actually the bottom of the leg.
Right? Yeah. I grabbed that at one point to get him. But like I'm trying to press heavy in so that they can't reverse me.
Yeah. So grab some people, go on, give it a shot. Yeah, pretty good. Yeah. So нормально. Yeah, and then yeah. Here we go. Okay, we've had some very good questions. Question number one: what if they stop you? Okay, do something else.
Go fishing.
Yeah. So there's a lot. So I will cover a couple of questions I've answered for some people, but for the whole group, so we can all kind of have that knowledge and information. First one, if their leg is solid and you can't get your hip all the way under, right? If their leg is solid, right, and I can't get my hip deep, right, you plant your toe. You plant your toe, right, and then you straighten your leg. You straighten your leg, and then you bring them through, right? So that is one way to do that, but they still might be too strong. Also, but that's okay, then you just work something else. But that works really well. If I can't get my hip deep, plant my toe, straighten my leg, and roll them over it. All right, one. Now, the next one is a very good defense, and it sometimes happens because we don't have good elbow control, or they're just really strong. But that's when we plan for two people to attack. Ronan, yeah, come here. Well, actually, you come here. Are you filming right now? Sorry, what was your name again? What? Martin. Yeah. All right. So Martin is going to defend my hump and bump, but I have my partner, right? And the way he defends, go ahead.
Oh, you want me to attack?
No. I'm sorry, you were going to say something. The way he defends is he'll turn his hips away from you, right? So Brett will go for the hump and bump, and Martin will turn his hips away, right? So go ahead. So Martin turns his hips away. This is a great hump and bump defense. This is a good defense. But if we're fighting two people, right? Go ahead and relax. We're fighting two people, Brett and I, and we do this because we work together. We call double bump. Two people do the hump and bump, same time. So Brett goes that side, I go this side, right? And I maybe stay relaxed. And we go for double hump and bump. He turns his hips away from Brett, right? And turns his hips into me. So we can both go at the same time, right? Right in the center, right? We call double bump and we press deep. Wherever he turns his hips away from, that's the guy who gets it.
You call mine, or whatever.
So two people on one, super fast, very low energy, not a lot of work, right? Buhurt is about being lazy, not about working hard, right? Because it's a long day, right? So you want to be lazy in Buhurt. You want fast kills, low energy, nice and relaxed, ready for the next fight, right? So this, if we are going to attack him, right, and I see them wrestling, right, and I call double bump, right, and we both go, and wherever he turns his hips, oh, okay, yours, right, we both go for hump and bump. One of us will get it. Very fast, all right? So we want to try that? Sure. Yeah? All right, go give it a try. I'll hit it first. Right? I'll hit this first. And it's the flat Brett will take it and I'll just go. Push, push, push. And I'll just
1-2. That makes sense. So like going to the ass.
push it over my leg. I'm going to help. Right? I have to keep him up first.
We are ready. He's down. He's already down.
I see that. I'm going to just press. Keep my foot safe. Yeah. Rule number 1 in Buhurt, stay up. Rule number 2, keep your friends up. Yep. Here, right. And this leg, he wants to pick this leg up, and I know that. But now I just cradle and you turn the go.
So one thing I want to say on this real quick, and sorry I'm losing my voice, so I'm going to crack repeatedly. But one of the things that I think we do a lot different than a lot of the rest of the European teams right now, and it's actually something that we might go too far in the opposite direction, but it's important to note, is we do not use much striking in a 2v1. We view striking as like, it's useful in certain situations, but grappling is much more consistent, right? If I sweep someone's feet from out from under them, they go down every time. If I chop them in the hand 20 times, some people are going to collapse and have a broken hand. Some people are going to pretend like they don't even notice you're there. It's very random, right? So while striking, we feel striking is very good to kind of manipulate how people are reacting in a grapple, we prefer to use team grappling when we're able to, right? Now the problem with team grappling is most of the time, if you are not really on the same page, the second person grabbing the same person as you just becomes a barrier for you to do what you want to do, right? So like from that standpoint, sometimes, especially if you're not on the same page, I'd rather that dude just stand back and strike so he can get out of my way, right? Because of that, we train 2-on-1 grappling at our practices constantly. We do light to no striking when we do it because we want the person who is the one to be comfortable getting 2-on-1 over and over and over again and not worried about like, well, this guy's gonna bend me over and then this dude's gonna like smash me, right? So we do almost no striking whatsoever, or if we do strike, we step back and we do full range of motion super light. So we'll be like, oh, boom, here, bah, bah. Just enough that the person is like cognizant of there could be striking here, you have to do something about it. But yeah, that would be just one of the things. It's really different when you see a lot of the higher end European teams fight compared to what our meta has started to become, because there's so much more falchion striking. And I actually think it's something that we need to add a little bit more into our game, but I think the flip side is true for Europe.
Our rule of thumb is you hit them once. If they react badly, then maybe you hit them again.
Yes.
But if you hit them and they don't really react, then we don't bother hitting them again. That's our kind of rule of thumb. And on top of that, you'll notice that when we fight other top teams, we don't really bother hitting them because we know you guys are tough. And that's the thing, like if you fight Bearpaw or Partisan, there's no point hitting those guys.
Right.
Because, as you're saying, when you hit us, it's like, I'm just going to take the pain, you know? And so that's the other part of the mindset. It's like, well, if we're going to fight tough guys, there's very little point. A polearm you will hit, because a polearm will cripple somebody.
Yes.
And no matter how tough they are, they're going to go, you know? But with falchions, it's not really worth it.
Okay, so let me create a scenario and you can tell me if it's familiar. I'll use Brennan and Brett. Brennan is on the rail and Brett is wrestling him, right? And I am, and Brett is, and Brennan is pressing Brett into the rail, right? And they're fighting. And I am on Brett's team. So this is what we see in Buhurt. Yeah? Right? Or maybe a knee, right? Or maybe a whack, right? And does it change anything? Right? Right? Is that what we see though? Yeah, this is what, or we see he's got his head, Brett has his head, and then I go grab his head too, right? And now we're both grabbing the head and doing this. Now he's very, very stable. Yeah? And he's, thank you, now I'm safe. Yeah, is this common? Yeah. Right, so maybe if I run up and I do this and say push, right? Maybe that, or maybe I run up and I say head, and I get that head. Yeah, and so he takes his arm, pushes the head up, and I say head, and I just go and I take the head. Instead of this, all the time, every Buhurt, everywhere. So if you see your opponent or you see your friend getting fought and their back, your opponent is against your back to you, don't just run up and hit him because now he knows you're there. Don't do that.
And it's the most frustrating thing to see because we see a lot of times they run up and they do this big check, and I'm thinking to myself in my head, that's going to be a beautiful head rip, or it's going to be a beautiful attack, and then they just check him and he bounces off with essentially the list. I'm like, oh well.
Yeah. One more real fast. One more. Also, if they're fighting, but they're separated slightly, and he's my opponent, and he's stand here, he's off the list, and I'm coming from the other side, and I go, boom. What does he do? He falls into the list. Did I help?
Him.
I helped him. Right. If he can reach the list with his arm, don't hit him into the list. Don't hit him. Yeah, if I see him, now this is what I would do. I would run this way. And then now I hit him, right? Because now he has nowhere to catch himself. Small moments create big, big things for your team. In 5 versus 5, when you take one out, you now have a win. If you just stalled the rest of the match, you win. So instead of, slow it down. Go ahead, Brett. Were you going to add something?
I was just going to say, looking at this, another kind of philosophy of ours you guys can think about is generally anytime we have someone coming into the grapple, assuming it's a stalemated grapple or I don't have a significant advantage on my opponent, which one, me or my teammate entering the grapple, generally has the higher ability to get a takedown? The other guy, my teammate who's coming in from behind or from the side who isn't already tied up, right? I've already been in this grapple and I'm still stalemated, right? So the guy coming in is the one who has the greatest potential to get that takedown. So for us, it is much more my job to set up my teammate and support my teammate rather than my teammate support me, if that makes sense, right? So I don't say, oh good, I've got someone coming to help me, maybe I can finally get his head down, right? Because I haven't gotten his head down so far. If Dan's behind him, right? Let's say we're fighting like this, boom, and Dan comes up. Well, head rip's a great attack from right here, right? So I'm like, okay, he's got the head rip, but I'm not letting go. Dan comes to head rip.
Head.
Boom. Guess what doesn't come free?
Stuck.
Right? And that's because I didn't try to set him up. I just maintained what I had and expected Daniel to somehow do what he's gonna do. It's gonna happen well, right? If I know I have someone coming up behind and we have a good head rip, I'm sitting here, I go, okay, boom. Right? I need to feed to him. It's not me. This isn't my guy. All right? It's my teammate's kill. I set up my teammate. All right? Something good to think about. Sure, that changes. If I've got like Brennan down like this, I'm not going to be like, oh, Dan's coming. Right? Because now I'm in a dominant position and it is his job to come finish and secure that takedown. But so often, especially at the higher end, the runner is going to a matchup that isn't massively in someone's favor. They're going to a matchup that is somewhat stalled. It's back and forth. And when that happens, that runner is the X factor. They're the ones who has the greatest potential to make something happen. So you should be doing what you can to set them up, not expecting them to set you up. That make sense?
Yeah.
So just kind of a philosophy thing we go for a lot.
We'll show you a standard head rip setup on. I'll set it up for Brett. Right. So everyone understand head rip?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, if I know that a head rip is possible, I have to be ready, right? So if my hand's here, I have to be ready to clear. So standard head rip setup. If Brett is on backside, right, and I want to set up this head rip, two things are very important. One is the list side, the outside wrist, and the second is his chin or his neck, right? So if I see Brett, I want to control this wrist. Why? What does he want to do if he knows Brett's there? Turn. What does this do? Prevents him, right? So I want to control the wrist, and then I want to give Brett his head. So all I do is I just push on his neck, the bottom of the helmet. Here, not here. I push on the bottom of the helmet, and it just pushes his head back, right? And now he has it.
You're doing it well with your fist, don't do it with your hands.
Yeah,
You can't grab that. Yeah, so I just want to give that a bit. Yeah.
or forearm.
Don't, not with
Too.
him.
But
Yeah.
if this works, I generally go over
Yeah.
and under
Here,
the forearm.
here, this is fine, but you do it right on if you do forearm, you usually do center of the helmet. If you go really high, it tends to slip, and now he can't
And
grab.
I do this.
Yeah, and we don't want that. We want to be low and out of the way, right? So wrist, neck, right, forearm, boom. Now he's easy head rip. As soon as I see him lock, I let go and I go somewhere else. Or I wait to make sure it's done, right? Because he's gonna and then turn. And now, to finish the head rip, biggest mistake I see in Buhurt is people they turn towards the open. And you see what happens? When they turn towards the arena, he can drop this shoulder and push and clear with his hand. So you turn towards the list with the head rip. He has nowhere to go. Always towards the list. Don't turn towards the arena. This, bad. This, good. You want to practice that?
Yeah.
All right, go practice it.
Yeah.
Once we get that tight grip, it's a right, and then it turns. It breaks the posture. And if they're super strong, right, I'll stick my knee here. Right. Yeah. If someone pulls, right, I immediately drop that shoulder and I step into them, and then I can roll my hip out and around.
What is the best way when you are in a gauntlet?
Yeah.
What is the best way to grab somewhere here for you?
Grab the gauntlet.
Ah,
You're allowed to. Yeah, because everyone has weapons, right? Yeah. I have a weapon. So when you grab my gauntlet, it's not coming off. And then we have a shield over here. The gauntlet's not going to come off.
okay.
Yeah. They have to open their hand and relax to let it slide off. In which case, what are they doing? Nobody does that. Right? You pull, then you have the gauntlet. Yeah. They just pull back, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
For example, I am too short and he's too tall, and he's doing this, and I can't push him with this part of my hand. Can I push with the shield?
Yes.
Like that?
Yeah, I take the tip of the shield, right, and I get like at the base of their face or wolf rib, just stick it in a rib, right, and then jam it up. Yeah. And what I want to now is go like this.
Yes, pretty close. I think more depth. Yes, because now this is like. I don't want to expose the head at the loss of the shoulder, right? Because that's the most powerful part. So multiple people, I was seeing this, boom, I've got control of this arm and I'm pushing in, but this shoulder's right here, it's very hard to head rip. Instead, almost focus on this here, and this is just like keeping his head exposed. This is the thing that really screws him to the head rip because he can't get his shoulder back. Right? Now the head rip comes, he goes that way, there's no good defense.
His head doesn't have to be back, although that's nice, but the thing is his head can't be connected to his opponent's chest.
Right.
Because now there's no space. That's the problem.
Yep.
It's not even a leverage behavior, it's can you physically get your hands there?
Yeah.
Yeah. And a head rip win condition, right? And turn your back, right? Is this shoulder. This shoulder is my win condition. So if I'm doing the head rip, right? And I go head, 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 head. I'm calling. My first contact point is forearm to this shoulder. Here. Why? Because I don't want him to turn. I don't want him to turn. So my first point of contact, it's not this, right? It is this here. Boom. Athletic position. Reach. Grip. Okay, I got it. You know, now clear. I have it. I can turn. I can take my time. And by taking my time, I mean maybe half second.
Yeah. And on the flip side, for people who don't do a lot of head rips, realize that is the defense. On the other side, like if you get head ripped a lot, I tell all of my guys, the key, this shoulder, this rail, right? I feel hands go around here, especially me. I'm not tiny, but there's a lot of guys way bigger. I'm not gonna be like against Dan. Dan's huge, or Daniel's huge, right? He's gonna yank me down. So boom, the second I feel pressure comes in, shoulder comes here because they lose the angle. Once I'm broken backwards, it's almost too late.
Okay, last thing I want to point out. Imagine, here. Okay, we'll call this an axe.
Damn.
Okay. All right, perfect. All right. So, if I'm going to head rip and I do this, how big is this hole? Is this a big hole?
Yep.
Yeah. Do people do head rips with a hole this big?
Always.
Yeah. Can you get your head out of a hole this big? What about a hole this big? Not so much?
really.
What about a hole this big? Makes sense?
Yeah.
Make a tiny hole, okay? So when I go up, right, first contact point here, right, here, and I pull to here, tiny hole. Head can't go anywhere except where I tell it to go, okay? Versus, sit up, this, and I grab and I pull, he goes wherever he wants, right? The head rip doesn't work. Make a tiny hole. Practice a tiny hole. Don't practice a big hole. Also, one more point. If you're going to grab, pull something, pull it this way or pull it this way. Which way is stronger? Hands up or hands down? Just feel it. Hands up, right? You get bicep, forearm, your tricep, you get all of it there, right? You get your lats, and you pinch your shoulder blades together, right? And I want to make this hole smaller. This kind of works, but if I pinch my shoulder blades together, I pull it to my chest, and it's just this tiny hole, okay? So this is much better than this, okay? That's what I got. All right, any questions before we conclude? I know Prague trolls are going to teach some stuff.
Yeah, let's say I see that a guy doesn't want to make a small hole, instead he makes a huge hole, but I don't have a lot of time until he closes it. If I find myself in this position, how do I defend against
Do exactly what Brett said, right? Same thing.
Nothing's stopping me. Boom.
So same thing, okay.
We're done.
Drop shoulder, yeah. It's very easy, very easy.
Again, that requires me to not be doing my job to a certain extent, because my job should be, no.
Right.
That
But
makes it
even
a lot
then,
harder.
if this is big and you pull hard, I can still do like this.
Exactly.
That's not a good slip, but it's good enough for a bad grab.
Yeah.
Right? If it's a tight grab and I do that, boom, and I try this, it's not. And he starts pulling, and then
Yeah.
I go wherever
Right there.
he tells me to.
In order to get 100% successful, they can't escape. It requires me to do my job. Don't let him move that shoulder. Him to do his job. Create a very small aperture.
So that's why he's keeping this shoulder forward. He's always finishing, turning into the rail.
And
'Cause
I'm controlling the shoulder too.
both of those go against the one thing I need to save myself, which is I need to tuck here, because now the angle's wrong. He can't take me backwards anymore, which means I can actually turn and slip out, right? So he keeps this shoulder forward. He turns my head this way. Now, how do I get my shoulder back?
I'm pinch, right? And practice this. Practice, because what will happen is by nature, you hold your weapon like this. What do you have? Do you have both hands up or one hand up? One hand up, which is better than nothing, right? But what do you do when you're a halberd or axe or whatever and you want to grab someone? What do people do? Because they want to reach, right? They want to do that, right? So if you start this way, stay that way. okay? And just know that when you grab, you're going to do this, okay? Yeah, all right. But both hands up is the best. But if you get at least one hand up, that's much better, much better.
And while we're talking about like small ways to improve efficiency on this, if you run into a situation where, actually I'm just going to say that generally speaking, you should probably approach the grip this way. Don't do this. No, all right? Come in from the side, come here. If you come over the top, you can easily miss it, especially if they're taller than you. You get stuck in the helmet, you can't get around to it. It's also just easier to get it wrong and slip, right? Like I can get it here, and that's very easy to slip off the top. You come around here, you typically get to place it exactly where you want. I like across the eyes. There tends to be somewhere to stick there. It's kind of miserable, but it's still above the center of their head. It's good leverage. So here, not this, and then down.
Yeah, and that last point is when you do place it on the eyes. If you place it here, below the eyes, mouth, or lower, they just tuck their head, right? And then they're super strong and solid.
Well, down here might also just become illegal depending on how it looks.
And then you might get underneath. Yeah, so it's bad. Get across the eyes, but it takes practice. It takes lots of practice.
Especially if you're a smaller guy. Bigger guys can sometimes just be like, "F it, I'm big," and they'll go into a bad place and yank it. Don't think that that's like good technique, even though that's totally viable if you have the strength. Just shrink the thing sometimes. But the smaller you are, the more important it's going to be that you get across eyes or right at forehead level, and you're breaking that head backwards, not like don't pull down and in, make me look at the sky, right? That first movement should make me look up, and now my strength is gone.
So head rips are the fastest, easiest kill, right? The least energy of all takedowns in Buhurt, but they're the most often are the most wasted opportunity, right? Because most people, big space, big opening, they jump, right? They have no plan, right? And remember, if you forget everything we said today, remember that when you're doing the head rip, this outside shoulder is what you have to control. So remember that and make a tiny hole. If you remember those two things, you'll be generally okay. It'll be much, much better. And then I'll get really mad when you head rip me. All right. Any questions?
Well, yeah, suppose a guy really does make a small hole and the other guy does his job. Is there no way I can save myself? Suppose I just...
Generally, no. Generally, no.
Against.
Yeah, generally, no. Especially if I'm doing my job and I have an athletic, strong pull.
I don't have the time to react.
Yeah, you're already here. Your posture is broken. You're done.
So that it is completely defensible, that's just too late in the process.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
So,
The defense is, if he tries to grab, well, okay, I'll try to grab his arm. First of all, he doesn't let me do this.
yeah,
Right?
I get out of here, or I stop this and I'm able to drive my head back down, or
the
I
head
know he's
protected.
coming and I know someone's behind me. I don't stay in between them. I've lost my position. Time to go find a different position. Boom. And I turn here. And then we try to refight it from this side, right? We don't fight a losing battle. At some point, everything's locked in, and maybe you stay up, but it's almost on your opponent to make a mistake at that point if everything locks in. So you got to defend kind of before everything locks most of the time.
The best defense is understand the psychology of the fight. Most people, if I'm fighting Brett and I'm intense and I get a brain like a lizard, right? There are a lot of people, right? And they just focus, now I just focus on him. And it's been maybe 30 seconds, a minute, nobody else has bothered me. So now I'm comfortable and I'm doing this, right? He's paying attention to the field, I am not, right? So your best defense is to always pay attention to the field, right? Your best defense, and we teach this with all of our fighters, is this leg, the leg to the arena, right? If I'm here, is back. Always back, right? Always back. If I'm attacking, this leg is back. This leg stays back. If this leg stays back, it's very hard to head rip me now. Very hard to head rip me. So that's first. Also, it's easy for me to see the field and deal with someone coming, right? That leg stays back. If this leg comes forward, right, he has easy attacks. Boom, right? Or even just, block it with either leg. No matter how he wants. Boom, yeah, boom. This leg comes forward, or now head rip is easy. Or even legs come perpendicular. Head rip is easy. So when you fight and you move up and down the rail, this side leg does not come forward. It stays back here. That is a very, very easy defense. Any other questions? Yes?
Do you have like an app or anything like that where you post these things? Like an academy or?
We created a training app for everyone. It does cost money because it cost me a lot of money to create the app. But there's an app. Everything that we teach, we have hundreds of classes on takedowns, on striking, on teamwork, on all things Buhurt. It's called Armored Combat Academy. Right? I'm not here to sell it to you. I just want you to know that we put hundreds of hours into it. It's to make all of Buhurt better. Because we, as Dominus, one thing we say to everyone is we would rather lose a good fight than win an easy one. I think this is true for all of us, yeah? Yeah. All right, any more questions? All right, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.